bag vibe, baby.
Welcome to the Cup of Joe Show, where we explore the journey of recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. One story, one conversation, and one step at a time. I'm your host, Joe, creating a safe space for honest discussions about the challenges and triumphs of addiction and alcoholism. In each episode, we'll hear inspiring stories and uncover tools that make healing possible. Sobriety is not a one-size-fits-all journey, and you don't have to face it alone. Recovery is possible, and it's worth it. Thank you for joining the Cup of Joe Show. Now let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Cup of Joe Show. I'm your host, of course, Joe. And today I'm excited to have my friend, Troy D. Troy's been sober since February 21st, 2018. And he's a man who knows what it means to get back up, and keep moving forward no matter how tough life gets. Troy comes from a strong family. His parents have been married for over 60 years, and he's one of 5 siblings. He's a proud father of 2 daughters and someone who's learned the value of both companionship and solitude. He got to retire early, since the age of 38, and after a series of great careers, he now spends his time doing the things he loves: riding motorcycles fast and hard, camping, traveling, kayaking, and having plain fun. Troy also shares his story of recovery far and wide. Through all of life's twists and turns, Troy keeps showing up with gratitude and grit, living proof that even when the chips are down, we can always rise again. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's get into it. How are you doing today, Troy?
I'm doing pretty amazing today, Joe. Thank you for having me on. My
I'm so
ego
glad
my
that
ego thanks you for having me on.
well, both you and your ego are welcome, Troy. So what was it like growing up, Troy?
Well, that's an interesting question because perception is everything, and then after you get sober, you kind of look back and you do the steps with a sponsor, and you do a thorough 4th step, and you're able to see yourself even as a little kid in your behaviors. So, we grew up not. I grew up in a small town outside of Peoria, Illinois, called Elmwood. It was a farm town. Um, and then my dad worked at Caterpillar Tractor Company in East Peoria, Illinois, and my mom worked for the Secretary of State of Illinois. So two vast careers between the two, but hey, it worked. We didn't have a lot of money. My dad really spent a lot of time with us, camping, fishing, hunting. By all accounts, it was a pretty good childhood. And then until my dad got sick, he had colon cancer, and I don't know, I was young, 8 or 9, and he was on a lot of prednisone, about 3,000 milligrams a day, and it made him extremely angry and extremely mean. Um, and he took it out on us kids. And maybe my mom, I don't know. That was in an era when things were kept secret, parent squabbles were kept secret. But I'll tell you one thing from my dad. He always showed up. I remember he recognized he was mean, so he quit taking the prednisone without dosing down, and then it caused his hip to deteriorate. And back then, they didn't just pop a hip in and you're walking down the hallway. He was on crutches for, I think, 2 years and a cane for a year. And I remember, he showed up for every sporting event. My brother ran cross country, and he would be at the start line, and man, he would just haul ass on those crutches over to the finish line. And those are things I'm able to see now. Living in it then, he was an asshole. Now I see, I had a pretty good childhood, especially when you get into recovery and you hear other childhoods, and then uh so only been able to deal with that. My dad was always hard on me. I wasn't good in sports. My brothers were great athletes. I couldn't compete, so I didn't try. Sports is not my thing anyhow. Jumping my BMX bike, skateboarding, break dancing. um, so you got to Google break dancing if you're young. So it just, I had a different childhood than my siblings. Um, I went in the military at a judge's persuasion because he said you're going to end up in prison if you don't go in the military. And I showed him after I got out of the military, I went to prison. So kudos to me. um, it, it was a pretty good childhood looking back on it. I recently was able to confront my dad of stuff I was carrying around for 55 years. And I became pretty free after that. So I think my childhood was probably average.
Yeah. Was there like what was your thoughts about alcohol or drugs or anything like that growing up? Did you see any of that around you, or was that not a part of
Uh,
that family?
well, but not in our family. I mean, I have uncles. I mean, every family has alcoholism or drug addiction in it, and I don't care how many times you go to church. But I realized my uncle Cole, who has passed away at I don't know 81, but he he was an alcoholic drug addict, but he's also a millionaire. So I idolized him, and actually, my middle name is Marcus, which is after him. My mom regrets that decision now, but and then our garbage man. I wanted to be a garbage man when I was a kid, and I didn't equate the thing, but our garbage man was a town drunk, in a small town. So I kind of looked to where I kind of idolized, and of course my opinions are my own. I am of the opinion that I was born an alcoholic. That was just God's plan for me. You know, the good news is I've survived everything in my life right up until this second. So there's always a way to stand back up when you fall down, and I have done that quite a few times in my life and in recovery. So you
So
know,
when you you've taken some time to reflect on the past, like looking back, were there any like warning signs when you were younger that maybe like you look back and you're like, man, I knew I was at risk. I had addictive behavior in this way. It may not have been alcohol or drugs. It could have been something else.
I yeah, when I do something, I'm all in. It's after I retired, people would be like, you should get a part-time job to have something to do. And I'm like, well, then I'd be working 90 hours a week for 20 hours pay. Yeah, I'm all in. I'm just always all in. And that's addictive. So, trying to be the best at whatever or the most money or everything, that's addictive personality in my views.
So when was the first time you felt the effects of drug and alcohol?
um I was at a party in high school, and they had bathtub punch, which was literally in the bathtub. And I got so drunk that they locked me in the garage. And then I finally, I remember this, and I don't know why, but I remember that um, I found the garage door opener in the car. I sat in the car, and I was going to drive it through the garage door. His mom's car, the guy's mom's car, and finally, I got out of the garage door and I was walking across the front lawn, and a guy I went to high school with said, why don't I give you a ride home? Because, well, I probably fell a few times. I don't recall that, but so he gave me a ride home, and then um, I had to face my parents. My mom and dad, when we got home, we would have to kiss them, um, and then so that they could, if they could tell if we were drinking or not. In a small town, there's nothing to do. Go out on a gravel road with a keg, and actually, it's funny that I did forget this. My my brother, my oldest brother, is I'm a I have three other siblings, by the way. There's only four of us. My oldest brother is untreated, one of us, in my opinion, and he asked me for help a couple years ago, and he's not willing to put in the work, and that's okay. I told him people can live a long miserable life drinking and drugging the way we do. It's your choice. And I feel I have control issues also, so that was hard for me to step back, and I'm going through that now. um did that answer your question? I don't even know what now. I don't remember what the
Yeah.
question.
No, if of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well, so
saw a
now
squirrel over there.
you're in the yeah, that's how we do, Troy. Um, so now you're in the military, and and is
That
drinking, is it
that's
escalating? Is it
that's where my alcoholism started. Well, I mean the physical um drinking started. Yes. Um I just really didn't drink a lot in high school, but when I did, I did. Um so then yeah, in the military, we're just kind of known for that. And I was finally shipped to Vicenza, Italy. Um I was not in the regular army. I was on special teams. And so I got shipped to Italy, and the first day I was there, uh, a guy from Minnesota made what's called summer hummers, or like lemonade with, and man, I got drunk, and then it was game on from there. You know, and we stayed drunk, and I was a heavy engineer in the Army Corps of Engineers, and we're which they call us heavy junkers. And my platoon, they called heavy drunkers because we all drink the same. And military was the first one to send me for help for alcoholism. Well, they sent me for help for my drinking. I guess I didn't equate it to alcoholism at that time. So, it's the military is not my fondest memories, for sure. I drank at the military for a long, long time. And then what I realize now is I really just drank at everything for a long, long time. But the military was my excuse, and my dad. So it didn't take, I mean, obviously I'm 56 now, and, I'm got a little over 7.5 years sober. Uh, so I've been at this game a long time. I am not a person that believes I was previously sober. I never say I was sober for this long or whatever. I just say I had previous attempts at sobriety, because if I was truly sober, I really don't feel that I would have drink again, and that's my belief.
so? And that kind of maybe leads to, like, what were some of the biggest lies you told yourself while you were out there drinking?
Oh boy, they were all big. I was the best at everything. I I glamorized my military service. I glamorized my life. I glamorized, I made my first million when I was 27. And on my first marriage, I had a stepson, and I was telling him, thinking I was encouraging him, but what I really did was hurt him, because I said, he was very intelligent and had aptitude, and I said, I made my first million at 27. So I was telling my mom this, and my mom said, "Well, did you tell him you lost your first million at 27 too, plus some?" Not the part of the story I tell, you know. And just and my whole drinking career, as far as financials, was just up and down. I was either broke, or I just had so much abundance of money. And what I have now is a happy control income for me. Uh, I'm not rich by any means. I have none of that money left. I literally just, and another, my youngest daughter's mom had told me, we owned a paint and drywall company in Washington, D.C. metro area, and it was pretty large. And she said, "You will bring home a $3 million check and spend 6 to 8 million the next day." And that was not figuratively, that was literally. And what happens is, I'm great at starting companies, and I'm great at growing companies. I grow them too fast to where if you're waiting 30 to 90 days on a check, but yet you still got to maintain, you're going in debt to maintain, you know. So I got a $1 million paint and sheetrock bill, and I'm waiting on 2 million, but it's still going to be another 60 to 80 days before I get that check. So you're running on a line of credit, which is pretty, and then I don't pay off the line of credit when I get the check. You know, I go buy Porsches or Corvettes, or big trucks. Um, I've have an addiction to spending money. Um, my second wife was very frugal when I met her. Um, and one of the biggest problems in our marriage was, my thought is, I can always make more money. So our spending habits were different, but I also taught her how to spend money, and that's on me. I blamed her for everything for years. And we'll probably get into that a little bit later in the show.
So
Unmute.
was there was there any time that you tried to stop during this that you just couldn't, or um I know you said you've had moments of being sober,
But
and
with
going back out, so to
Right.
speak.
Yes, I've had moments of not drinking. I went to, I hate when people say meeting makers make it. Well, you know what? If that was the case, I'd be sober like 30 years. So apparently not. Um, and there's a lot of sayings in AA that are great for newcomers, but I really disbelieve and think it's doing a misjustice to them, and that being one of them. Now it gets them to meetings, but I thought that's all I had to do. I had sponsors in name only. I was a member of Pacific Group, and I just I thought I was all that, and I thought I was that sober, and because my ego gets in the way, and that's a continuous battle to this day. I am definitely a lot more humble today than I ever have been in my life, but it's a constant battle to admit I am not the best and greatest person that's ever walked this earth. So in those periods of sobriety, and I had some, or not drinking, I had some lengthy ones. I just I wasn't doing anything but going to meetings. So the last time, um, before I got sober this time, I had quite a few years of not drinking, and I was in acting class, and the teacher said, "You don't drink, do you?" And I said, "No, I'm in recovery." And he said, "Maybe you should." And I was drunk that night. I literally was waiting on permission. And then I blamed Clancy. I blamed AA. I blamed everybody. Um, but it was all on me. And that's what I'm really learning a lot. This past week, I had a fall, so to speak, in my recovery. Not in my sobriety, but in my recovery. Um, and I'm digging my way out with the help of local people in AA, and it's people in Alcoholics Anonymous literally help me all the time. I thought I was helping them;
Before
they
we
were
get,
helping me.
yeah, that's kind of how it works. We're we're trying to when we're trying to help others, they're usually helping us more than than we're helping them. So I know
Yes.
that feeling. But before we get to that, what was the turning point, Troy? What was the turning point 7.5 years ago that got you to do
I,
something different?
divorce. My first divorce. Uh, I literally was on a mission. My first divorce was, I didn't get married till I was like 45, and I'm 56 and been divorced twice. Maybe it's not my thing. Maybe I picked the wrong women. I don't know. Maybe I'm not that healthy and I'm the problem, because my last wife, Tanya, I've had to look at myself in our marriage and what I did, and I had to make amends to her recently, and we'll get into to Tanya later. But what happened was my first divorce. I went a little another shiny object. My first divorce was finalized November 21st of 2017, and my sobriety date, ironically, is February 21st of 2018. Did not plan it that way. What happened was I just started drinking myself to death, and I was out of control. People I drink with, biker friends of mine, said, "You really need to do something about your drinking." Now, I just thought they were judgmental pricks, but come to find out, I did. So what happened was I just started drinking Jack Daniels straight, and I don't really even like Jack Daniels, but that's what we do. And I was buying these huge $60 bottles of Jack Daniels, and I was drinking probably one a day. I don't really remember. Um, I had a little Jack Russell Chihuahua mixed dog that sleeps underneath the covers. What happened was uh, I got checked into a hospital with a 0.393 blood alcohol level. Now, if I wasn't an alcoholic, I'd be dead. I had the last 4 days. So I always say the last 4 days of my drinking is what got me to surrender. Um, the dog sleeps under the covers. Well, I was just getting up, drinking, passing out, and I did this for the last 4 days. And I couldn't get into detox or treatment. Every place was full in the Phoenix area in Arizona. So I had to detox myself. And you might be alcoholic if you know how to detox yourself. Just saying. But I laid there. I pooped myself. And then I would get up and make another drink, but I wouldn't wipe my ass. That's how definitely bottom of the barrel alcoholic behavior. this little dog that sleeps underneath the covers was curled up right by my head, just shaking the whole time. Um, you know, so I'd been talking to some people in AA. I didn't really Sam V. I'd been talking to him for a couple weeks, and he's like, just keep drinking until you're done. And one of my neighbors had been sober like 20 something years at that time. And she would check on me, and she's the one who got me in touch with Sam, and I was being 12 step before I knew I was being 12 stepped. And what I did was I just, on February 17th, my neighbor, I was shaking so bad, like it was like a cartoon. My arms were just, I'm like, oh my God, this can't be real. And and my neighbor went and got me. I said, "Can you go get me a 6-pack of Coors Light?" And he said, and he came back with a 12-pack. He said, "I really think you're going to need it." And I drank that whole 12-pack, and that was the last drop of alcohol I've put in my body. Um, and yeah, and then February 18th, I went to a meeting, and when I introduced myself in the meeting, Sam came and introduced himself, and then I got a sponsor who was going through divorce. I just threw a dart, picked a sponsor. He, it was somebody that talked great in the meeting, but that was about it. He was going through a divorce, so I thought we have that in common. And then what happened was he was getting sicker, and I was getting better. So I consider my first real sponsor Mike Clough from Road to Recovery in Mesa, Arizona, and he had a real raspy voice, and I can say his last name because he's dead. Uh, no anonymity there. Um, he he taught me how to be a man, and I love that man for everything he's done for me. He he um, he was a good man, and at his funeral, it came out that most of us were in AA. We called him Concrete Mike. He owned a concrete company, but he used to hang up on me. Like when I bought my first house when I was about, I think, 7 months sober. Now I've owned houses before, but this was in sobriety, and a VA loan comes with its own set of challenges, and that's where I first learned to turn something over to God and leave it to God. Let God handle it. And but I looked at another house, gave him earnest money, and then I figured out it was going to cost me $60,000 to move into it. So I found this house in an HOA, and I had a big diesel truck with no exhaust, and loud Harleys, and all my Harley friends come over, and side by side toy hauler. I mean, I was like white trash with money, baby. And so I said, well, I'll be the person people complain about. Well, turns out they were all just working class people too. And so it was nice, and I loved that neighborhood, and I loved that house. It by far was my smallest house, and it was by far my favorite house. um and I don't know if that equates to I did it in sobriety, but I think it was just manageable for me. um but anyhow, back to Mike. So anyhow, I called Mike, and I'm like, dude, I found my perfect house. And he's like, real raspy, well, you don't even have your earnest money back from the other house, so why don't you wait a week and get your check back from that before you make a decision? And being the true alcoholic I am, I said, that's a great idea, and hung up the phone and looked at my realtor, and I said, offer them $4,000 more than asking and have them pay the closing cost. And she goes, that's not what, she's not in the program. She goes, well, that's not what Mike told you to do. I said, no, but I don't want to lose this house. So therefore, I didn't put it in God's hands. I definitely didn't listen to my sponsor, and I called him back 10 minutes later because they answered right. They responded right away. I got it, so I called him back 10 minutes later. I'm like, dude, I just bought that house. That ain't what I freaking told you to do. Click, and he would hang up on me all the time. Uh, and that was the best thing for me. That's how I needed to be sponsored because I had an unwillingness to listen to great advice because I knew better. So this is by far my best years of my life, but I'm a defiant person. So I just it got to where I had to surrender to Mike too. Um, they got me involved in service when I first got sober. It was crazy. Like they're like, a guy named Sandy, and he said, you could do service work. That'll help you stay sober. And I'm like, because you have to have a certain amount of sobriety to do service. I don't have enough time to do service work. He goes, well, you can empty trash cans and make coffee, can't you? So then I'm cussing him out loud while I'm going to empty the trash can. And we had like 5 trash cans in that building, and every day I would empty them and make coffee and just I got into service, and then they gave me a service position, PICPC rep. To this day, I still don't know what they do. Um, but you're gonna learn your
I was going
position.
to ask too, Troy.
It's
I
public
was, I was going to
information.
ask what?
Yeah, public information, community, uh, something. Getting big books into schools, giving public information to libraries, police departments, stuff like that, is what it was. But it was I did that one. That was a tough one because I just didn't. Well, I didn't understand anything about Alcoholics Anonymous, to be honest with you. Um, and you always learn your position the day after you are done with it. So, but that got me involved in service, and then I became the literature, and then I was going to intergroup to buy literature because our group sold literature, and then I got to meet Kim W, the office manager, and she would be teaching me Alcoholics Anonymous, and I didn't know. And then I started answering the phones after I got a year down at Intergroup, and that was very fulfilling. And I was a little harsh with people, and I still have a harsh side. People call in, I got a DUI, I need to go to AA meetings, and I go, I need to get my slip signed. I'm like, well, are you an alcoholic? No, I just got a DUI. I go, then just sign the slip yourself. Why waste your time? Why waste our time? Probably not the. Unfortunately, now I look back and think maybe they were an alcoholic, and they come to the meetings. They might have figured out they were an alcoholic. So again, I'm doing people a disservice. Um, but Kim's great. We're still great friends today. A lot of people really helped me along the way, and still are. You know, so it's just been an amazing journey for me, good and bad.
What was the hardest part in early on, Troy, about getting sober?
Well, I don't think as far as getting sober, I was willing. I was done. Like, I am not one of those people from the first time I apparently I was driving around drunk on a golf cart with my dad 2 weeks earlier, told him I had to do something about my drinking. I don't remember it because I was drunk, but you know, the so the surrendering, when I got to AA, I was so happy to be in AA. Like, I was done. I have never had a thought that a drink was going to make anything better. Um, I've had a few things that I thought would make me drink if it ever happened, and we'll get into that when we start talking about my marriages. But I I haven't had a desire to drink. I've never thought that a drink was going to make anything better, and I thought there were a few things that were going to give me an excuse to drink, and I just didn't buy into it. I didn't buy into my own bullshit. Um,
That's
if
fair enough.
I think it was all hard, but it was all easy. And to this day, the last 7.5 years, or whatever, 7 years, 9 months, whatever it is, um, it's all easy and it's all hard. Um, and it's hard sometimes because I make it hard.
You're not alone in that. I think you said the key word. It's willingness. If we have, it really is about willingness. What I always have to say, what am I willing to do today to stay sober? What am I
Yes,
willing to do today to help somebody else? What am I willing to do today to get out of my own way?
yeah,
It's real willingness is really the key for me.
it is.
Um,
Now, when I had to eventually quit doing service, well, I'm an extremist. So when Mike died, I was about 4 years sober, I think, and I laid on his deathbed. And so this is a very important part to a lot of people. Um, we laid on his deathbed, and I laid literally, and I mean literally on his deathbed, and I laid face to face with him, and we picked out a new sponsor for me. We went through a list of names and picked out a new sponsor for me. I am not somebody that can be unsponsored in AA, or in life, really. And then they told me that I needed to quit doing so much service work. They called me the mayor of AA in Phoenix because I had my hands in everything. Uh, Everything AA. There's no place, I'm not shy, but there's no place we can go. I'm at a meeting 60 miles away, and somebody's like, Troy, and my girlfriend at the time was like, Jesus Christ, you really do know everybody in AA. But Mike said, you need AA gives us a life. AA is not our life. So in true alcoholic fashion, I quit doing service. I was a secretary of my home group. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm done. Um, quit answering phones at dinner group. I quit doing stuff. Service wise, I still had sponsees. Um, to this day, I have not had a sponsee drink, and that is not due to me, but that's due to them. Um, and their work and their willingness. But it's my ego got involved in my service work, so I had to really step back
that
and
makes
do service
sense.
in other ways.
Yeah, I was going to say, and you still do service. It's just service in a different way. And
It
I
is,
I get what you're saying about that. Um, so what are some of the best things that have happened to you in sobriety?
uh, buying that house in my name instead of in one of my company names. I've owned several companies, and just doing it on my own, and that was a big achievement for me. And I think it's because in I did it in recovery. I think that's why that was so special to me. The best. She's she's listening, but anyhow, one of the best and worst things for me in sobriety was my second wife, Tanya. She 13 stepped me. I was she is beautiful, so beautiful, the most beautiful person I've ever seen in this world, inside and out. Um, and she's like, can I get your number or whatever? She probably knows better how it went than I do, but I'm like, sure. She's like, how long you been sober? And I'm like, I'll have 60 days next week. And I thought that was the shit, man. And here, look, I got the catch of the day. I got the catch of a lifetime. And I still feel that way today, that I got the catch of a lifetime. She is the only person in this world, and I can't even say this about my mother, that I have truly, honestly, wholeheartedly loved unconditionally. And we've had an amazing journey over the last, almost 8 years, good and bad. We didn't stay together then. In about 5 years after that, I think we ended up getting married. And I blamed her. We five about 5 months ago, or maybe close to 6 months ago, I guess. November 19th to be 6 months. I left Arizona. Tanya and I divorced, and I left Arizona, and I went to a friend of mine and Tanya's in Iowa, helped him on his farm. He put me up. I stayed with family because I'm homeless, so to speak. And then I kept telling friends that we knew from Arizona. They live in Eastern Tennessee, and I said I would stop, and I don't know. I stopped here about a month ago, and have made a home here, and are building a a home, so to speak. I'm not building a house, building a home. Um, it's I think being married to Tanya is the greatest thing, not only that's happened to me in recovery, but that's happened to me in life. And even the journey we're on right now is still the greatest thing ever. Um, Unfortunately, loving someone wholeheartedly, unconditionally, you let them do a lot of stuff that you set no bound. I set no boundaries. I I I set no boundaries, and that's a problem. And I'm an enabler. That's a problem. I had to start going to Al-Anon, because uh, I was married to an alcoholic, and I thought I was going there to blame her, and I thought everybody would be on my side. And then the first meeting, I realized it's about me, and I wasn't too pleased about that because I'm already in a program that it's about me, and I'm tired of programs that look at me. Let's blame other people. That's so much easier for me. So I really, so yeah, Tanya's my greatest thing, and being able to go through anything sober, and so the two things that I thought would make me drink again, that was being divorced from Tanya and leaving Arizona, because I thought, well, I can only stay sober in Arizona because it seems to work in Arizona. Now I know it works because of my willingness. Um, and I don't feel, so that didn't happen. These are excuses I made up in my mind that I was willing to drink over, and my willingness to stay sober was greater than my willingness for the excuse to drink over these two things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean it does, and it's it reminds me of when I took a job that was outside of the area where I got sober, and I was like, well, what am I going to do? I can't. I can't do this. And I remember a guy, Bill. He said, he said, just I think it's similar to what you were told. Is we are in this program so that we can live life outside of it.
Yes.
And He said, "Go live your life outside of it," and that's that was a really big lesson. It was a big lesson, and that we I guess we so. Um, what's a typical day look like for you? Like from when you wake up, what are some of the things you do to kind of get on the right track?
So I get up and I pray. So I used to have a routine when I was in my house. When Tanya and I got married, we moved to her house. But which is why I'm kind of homeless. Um I get I would if the bed wasn't made, I knew I didn't pray. I'd make the bed right after I prayed. So if I walked in, I'd go hang out by my pool and so I would pray. So now I pray in the morning. I meditate. I try to meditate for at least about 20 minutes. I read the St. Francis prayer. Some people call it the 11 step prayer, but that's just because alcoholics like to hijack everything. It was around long before AA. The prayer of St. Francis, I read that. And then I just ordered a book that actually you had suggested, Joe, which breaks down the prayer of St. Francis. And now, do I say the prayer of St. Francis and live by that every day? No, but I live by it the best of my ability. And it's just and then I take phone calls. I call people. I take phone calls from I have 3 sponsees since I've lived here a month, and because all my other sponsees have probably 4 or 5 plus years. One has like 16 years. Um, um, What one I will you know what one of the greatest achievements actually was a guy that had 49 years sober asked me to sponsor him, and I'm like, why do you want me to sponsor you? He said, because I like what you have. So, and that was back when I was doing well. Now, since I've left Arizona, I really, looking back now, uh realized I was and I got to give him his 50-year chip. So that was amazing. And a guy was getting a 24-hour chip. So I always give a speech when I give a chip. Well, I give a speech no matter what I'm doing. But and I said, how amazing is this? We got a guy starting his journey in AA, and let's face it, Gene, you're ending your journey in AA. Because he was like 80 something over. He was above 85. He was like 88, 89. So and he passed not too long after that, and that was his goal, to get his 50-year chip. So that was pretty amazing. Mike, Concrete Mike, and then my sponsor. I've had 3 sponsors in Alcoholics Anonymous. Um, then Buddy John became my sponsor. That's the name me and Mike chose. And then when I left Arizona, and then finally when I got to Eastern Tennessee, and God bless my friends Jimmy and Susie, just amazing. Just amazing AA people. Loving, kind, laid back, just yeah, whatever, and that's kind of what I need. And what I've found when I got here, I got my ass handed to me by myself. Um, I had been resting on my laurels probably since I left Arizona. So it was instructed for me to get a new sponsor here. And I did. An amazing guy. I have to say that because he's hosting the show. But he really is helping me a lot. And what happened was I blamed Tanya for our divorce, um, and everything. Um, and what I learned was I had a part in it, and it all started with a guy named Travis that he used the word transparency in a meeting. And man, that just set the ball rolling, and my mind opened up, and everything just kept come flooding in and flooding in, and I was a train wreck. And people here locally in AA stepped up, and they could see my behavior. I was acting out, and said, "What's going on with you?" And so Tanya and I didn't really speak unless about financials or anything for about since I left Arizona, and then recently we have um, been talking on the phone, um, and leaving. Right now, we're trying to rebuild our friendship. We remain best friends, even though we didn't stay together, and that's a true testament for her. Um, so we just, but now we're rebuilding our friendship, and then we had to slow it down a little bit because Tanya and I like to go 0 to 100 quick, and so we had to slow it down, and now we decided we're talking 2-3 hours a day on the phone, and now we're talking once a week, um, and that's okay. And I still have to let Tanya live her life, and I'm living my life. And I don't know what God's plan is for me. I don't know what God's plan is for Tanya, and I definitely don't know what God's plan is for us. Um, Maybe we're just meant to be friends. I don't know. I know we both have a deep, unbreakable, unshakable, passionate love for each other. Um, doesn't mean we're meant to be together, and that's a hard pill for me to swallow. All I ever wanted since the day I met her was her. Um, and that was now I'm okay. I can stay sober. I can live my life without her. Um, I have a great life without her. She has a great life without me. Um, and if we ever come back together, great. And if we don't, that's okay too. At least we're speaking. And then the reason we didn't speak was nobody did anything wrong in our marriage. It wasn't our time. It just wasn't our time, and that's it. Now, my first marriage, I did go to prison. I've had about 20 DUIs, and I went to prison for DUIs for 8 months, and actually married my first wife in prison. Nothing alcoholic about that. And then I got out, and I had to call the probation officer within 24 hours, and I called him from a bar drinking. Nothing alcoholic about that either. So my alcoholism and my addiction can rule my life if I let it. I had a lot of realizations lately, and I'm overcoming them. I'm getting through them with the help of people in AA and good sponsorship and open mindedness. Um, it's just I'm willing, I'm open mindedness, and I'm honest. And sometimes I'm brutally honest. Now, one of the big things with me and Tanya was, I don't know, kind of not, no, not a lot of honesty there, on my part. Um, I don't know about her part. That's not for me.
Well, you're making a difference already here, Troy. And you've really made an effort to become a part of, and that's a big deal. And I think it's very common for us as we get sober. Initially it's about the drink or the drug. We get but as life goes on and we get some time behind us, it really becomes more about our emotional well-being, and our mental well-being, and I think that's an important part that you mentioned, uh, that you're experiencing and you're working through it. It's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And
You
it's,
know?
alcohol was my solution. And now Alcoholics Anonymous is my solution. I just had to change my solution, and I have to really look at myself. And I thought, well, you know what? I've been sober this long. I don't need to look at myself anymore. I'm cured. I mean, and as far as the emotional and what I've learned is, I think I may have done very little work on my emotional sobriety. Um, it's kind of what I'm seeing with this breakthrough, and um, it's just it's been a great journey, and it's been a great journey alone, and it's been a great, Tanya's been an intricate part of my sobriety since I got sober. Um, so she's a big part of my sobriety, but she is not my sobriety, and she is not my life. My life is my own. Um, and that's been a hard truth that almost like I made her my higher power. I rested on my laurels. I made excuses. I was very codependent on her, and I see now where uh, that was not, that's just not how it is. I've learned a lot since I've been in
Yeah,
Eastern Tennessee about myself.
yeah, that's a big deal. So what would you say to someone who might be out there listening, Troy, who is feeling hopeless at the moment?
There's a greater good, so to speak. Sometimes we have to feel hopeless to find hope, if that makes sense. You know, it, 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 it's hard for us to see a solution when we're in that. But if you just don't drink, um, you can find a solution. Eventually, you'll make it to Alcoholics Anonymous, if you haven't already, or any 12-step program that you need to be in. I go to CA meetings, not because I like cocaine. I love the smell of it, but I like their meetings. You know, so it's just. And if I need a meeting, I don't give a crap if it's something I've never done in my life. Like, I've never done meth, I've never done any of that stuff, but I'll go to a meeting if I need a meeting. I don't care. It doesn't have to be an AA meeting. Um, just don't lose hope. Pray, pray, and God knows what you're going through, and God will help you find a way out of it. But you have to do action also. And when you're in a hopeless state, that's hard to take action. um and action is the biggest thing proponent we have in any 12-step program. Action, it is all about action.
Absolutely. Well said. And so is there anything you wanted to talk about that we didn't?
um I have a good, so my dad, what happened was I had apparently a lot of resentments against him, for the way I felt I was treated. um our marriage counselor, and then I would see her individually, and Tanya would too, and I still see her individually. um and she, I started that's when I started journaling. And so it took me that long to start journaling. Like, I'm changing my behavior still to this day. Um, and I'm changing my thoughts and beliefs about stuff. So anyhow, I figured out that my dad was a big issue even in my sobriety. And we always just get into it. So I called him and I said, "Are you by yourself?" And he said, "No." So he got by himself, and I said, "I need you to understand that you are a great father and that I love you very, very much. I want you to. I have something to say to you, and I don't want you to interrupt me. I don't want you to speak until I am done, and then when I'm done, we can discuss things." So I started out with, when I was a little boy, all I ever heard was how much you wanted a little girl, and then you had Tammy, and then you quit having kids, and that made me feel unwanted. I used the words feel because feelings are not always accurate. Just because I feel it doesn't make it true. So then I said, Tony and Todd were amazing athletes, and I could never compete. I felt I could never compete with them, so I, I didn't because I felt inadequate compared to them. And then, I started to, then he interrupted me. I said, "Dad, I ask you please not to interrupt me." And then, I went on with a few more things, and we're not even 3 minutes on the phone. And then he starts defending himself, and then he starts blaming me. So I hung up. My siblings knew I was doing this. I called them and said that was probably the very last conversation I'm ever going to have with our father. And then I felt free. I felt so free. This burden I had been carrying my whole life. I was 55 years old. My whole life, these resentments against my dad, because all I could see was the bad, not the good. I recognize the good today, as we discussed earlier about my childhood. I so I called my sister. I called my siblings, and I said, "Wow, I feel free." And my sister goes, "Well, it's about time. I mean, it's only been 55 years." And she's not in the program, and I'm like, oh my god. So what it was my mind telling me something that's not true. I had a feeling that was not true. I felt if I confronted my dad about all the misgivings I feel he appropriated towards me, that I was going to feel free. What it turned out was I just had to have the courage to approach him. Because man, when I hung up, I thought, boy, this is really going to be a huge setback, and it wasn't. It propelled me forward, and I just so my mind playing tricks on me was telling me if I get to say everything I need to say, I'm going to feel free. The reality was, if I had the courage to say what I needed to say, and that's all I needed to feel free. And that was just an amazing experience for me, really amazing, and let me start more looking at myself. I still go to counseling.
That's a great epiphany, though. It's just it's the actual finding the courage to actually take the action is really what's freeing. Doesn't
Yes,
necessarily have to be exact action. So,
yes.
well, I really appreciate you, Troy, and I appreciate you sharing your experience, strength, and hope. And
Thank you.
but I can't let you go, my friend, without our rapid fire questions.
Oh boy. Well, is this? We'll see how honest I am now.
That's it. No pressure, but pressure. I'll even we'll even give you a drum roll, Troy, because you deserve a drum roll.
I appreciate that. I used to think so. My ego definitely thinks so today, but what I've learned is I'm just a run of the mill alcoholic. I may have a different story than everybody else, but we all have the same story.
Yeah, and we well, I appreciate you sharing yours, and I know you touch some people today. Um, but if you are ready, sir,
I am ready.
are you
But
ready? All
by the
right.
way, the only thing I wanted out of this whole thing was if I touch one life and give one person encouragement to get sober and live in recovery, um, then you know that's it. That's all I
Yeah.
can ask for.
And that'd be a pretty big deal for sure. And let's hope we do that today. Um, so, what is your favorite recovery slogan?
Well, it's definitely not meeting makers make it. Um, uh, Clean house, trust God, help another.
Yeah. What is your least favorite recovery slogan?
I think we discussed that one, and yeah, meeting makers make it. Just not true. Not true at all.
What What do you think is your sobriety superpower?
Um, the ability to eventually, and I say eventually because sometimes it takes me a long time. I mean, just 7.5 years, and I'm just now, to eventually um, recover. Um, my ability to look at myself eventually, and know who is to blame, which is me. I am to blame for everything that has happened in my life because I have had a part in everything that has happened in my life.
If you could say one thing to your former self, what would it be?
Drink every last drop and make sure you're done, which is what I did. Some people say, oh, there was a guy in Phoenix, I drink too much and I talk too much. And I always pipe up. I'm like, I drink exactly the amount I needed to drink and I talk too much. So,
What song do you play to lift your spirits when you need a boost?
um, there are a lot of songs actually. But the one, it's a Christian song, and it oh, I can't even think of the name of it now. But I'll tell you, I love the Red Clay Strays. They're kind of a spiritual rockabilly band. I really love them, and one of them is There's Only One Me.
Hmm.
It talks about
You,
God's love for us because I'm the only one, or I can't remember the name of the song. I don't know. Just listen to all their songs.
yeah,
One of them is, Will Jesus Recognize Me? I mean, very spiritual, loving songs. So
good.
it picks me up, and what it does is it lets me know how much God loves me. Now, my higher power is God, whatever that looks like. You can look around and see God in everything, even the littlest things. And that's what I have to do.
That- If you could grant yourself one wish to help with your recovery, what would it be?
I used to think it was to be free, but if I'm free, I'm going to quit doing work. So that's not what I want. I wish My wish is to stay in recovery, continue to heal, and this is a lifelong process. This is not we don't graduate from AA. We don't get a certificate until it's a death certificate, you know. So, I just want my wish is to just continue to recover and to look at myself.
All right. What step do you love the most?
None of them. 13. No, um, 12. 12.
What step do you
Because
love the least?
well, that would be step one, because then I got to admit fault, and who wants to look at themselves? But you had suggested that I do a step one every day on well, I guess we could say it now, Tanya, so I have to use the steps in all of my life, and this is what I'm learning. I'm going to have to use the steps to quit smoking. I'm going to, I have to use the steps to carry relationships with other people. I have to use the steps in every aspect of my life. And I honestly, I think I did, to a point, throughout my sobriety, not intentionally. I did it unintentionally, but now I'm looking and doing it intentional. And when you're doing something intentional, it has a different outcome than if it's a byproduct of your unintentional, actions. If that makes sense.
Get that? No, it does. It does. What is one of your favorite movies?
Gone in 60 Seconds.
Good
I'm a car
movie.
guy. I'm a bike guy. I'm
Yeah. Great
Angelina
movie.
Jolie guy.
And finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
It's a pleasure to meet you in person, Troy. Thank you for allowing me to be your savior and carry you throughout life.
That's pretty cool. Well, thank you so much, Troy, for taking the time today. I know
Thank you for having me,
your story.
because this, I mean, literally, this helps me.
Yeah,
We joked
me
about my
too.
ego earlier, but what it does is it helps me. So maybe I'm the one person that it helped.
Maybe. But for the rest of you folks out there, please subscribe to our friends at thedailyponderables.com, your recovery source for inspiration and encouragement every day. A new episode of The Cup of Joe Show is released every Thursday at noon. Visit thecupofjoeshow.net, or you can listen to the show in your favorite podcast apps: Podbean, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and others. Just search for The Cup of Joe Show. Don't forget the "the." Please like, follow, subscribe, and share, because someone out there needs to hear this today. Have a good day, everybody.
It's just a laid back vibe, baby.
We hope you enjoyed today's Experience, Strength, and Hope. We are so grateful you decided to join us. Please share this episode with someone who might need it. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Remember, no matter where you are in your recovery journey, you are not alone. Reach up and reach out to someone. Please do not suffer in silence. Until next time, let's take it 1 minute, 1 hour, and 1 day at a time. Thanks for listening to The Cup of Joe Show.